I thought you wanted me to give him a quick round of applause.
So, Robin, introduce yourself.
Hello everybody, my name is Robin Adams. I call myself a marketing process engineer, which basically means that I help businesses understand the customer journey from the point that people think they've never heard of you all the way through to the fact that they're an absolutely massive fan of you, and work out how they can actually build a system that takes care of that process for them. And a thing that you don't know about my business is the fact that I'm pretty much a paperless business now. I've now adopted this and have removed paper entirely from my business, which is great because it means when I sit down with someone and take notes, I can immediately email the notes straight to them after the meeting, which makes me seem like I know what I'm talking about and quite professional stuff. So, little things. I'm a geek as well, so yeah, that's the best way to describe me. I'm a 51% marketer and 49% geek.
If we cut you through the middle, is it like a rock?
Yeah.
Geek,
Yeah,
marketer,
yeah,
geek, marketer?
yeah.
So before we get on to the Mailchimp stuff, I knew you from a little bit before.
Yep.
So maybe we can go through how you got into business,
Yep.
why you got into business, and your journey to Mailchimp part, and then we'll dig into that.
Yeah. No, my background, I've been in, like a number of you, I was corporate, but I've pretty much been in marketing my entire life. So I got a degree in marketing back when there weren't many places that actually did degrees in marketing, and fortunately had basically when I went to university, it was either go into marketing or become a physics teacher. Physics teacher was my backup, as it were, and got into marketing, realised that it really suited me. I really got it. And one of the things that I've always been very good at is being very empathy based. And that's great from a marketing point of view because all you're doing is putting yourself into someone else's shoes and trying to see how they're going to react and then basically encourage that reaction to take place. So that's always held me in good stead all the way through. Also, I'm very, very logical, hence the physics to some extent. It all made sense and fit together. So basically, I got into data management of marketing to some extent. So I got involved in market research, worked for big businesses, agencies, and then about 15 years ago, I quit my job and went to America for 6 months, travelled around, did 20,000 miles, qualified as a scuba instructor. And basically had that, how should I say, did my gap year about 15 years after everyone else was doing their gap year. Came back, started to work for small businesses and ended up in a business that basically I was helping small businesses with their marketing and their sales. Got made redundant from that and thought, you know what, this is good fun, I enjoy this, and basically started doing that for myself. I've always been a bit of the phrase I use, I'm not an expert in anything, but I know enough to be dangerous in most things. So I've built websites, so I know coding a website and how to build them, but I did that for a bit and I don't want to do that anymore. I've done social media. I got involved in video production. I was in video for 3 years. And then realised that wasn't where my heart kind of like settled, as it were. And I'm sure this was about 7, 8 years ago I got made redundant, and I'm sure this will resonate with some of you who've been in the situation. I didn't want to be self-employed. I had no desire to start a business. You know, you see all those people turn around and says, oh yes, I was 16 years old and I had 27 paper rounds and was working at my dad's shop at the weekend. No, that was never my goal. I kind of like fell into self-employment, as it were. But I realised that I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the breadth of people that I get to interact with. And something that me and Stuart were talking about previously, and probably something resonates with a lot of you. I've spent an awful lot of time over the last 6, 7 years dealing with imposter syndrome. Has everyone come across that phrase? Yeah? Right, so for those of you who don't, basically the idea, why would anyone harm me? Why do they think I'm any good? And it all comes down to confidence and having confidence in what you do, that you are good, that you do have value, and that when people do hire you for stuff, that you're worth what they're paying. And that was the reason why I spent a lot of my time going and working with other people, or kind of like not really doing the thing that I was, kind of like put in this earth to do. And basically ended up in a situation about 3 years ago where I suddenly realised that all my career, I'd focused on trying to find mentors, guiding lights, people to take me under their wing. even when I got involved in video production after I kind of like started working for myself, I was trying to find a business partner that I could work with. And I had an epiphany on a training course about 3 years ago where I've realised that I'd spent pretty much my entire working life looking for someone to believe in me, when in actual fact the only person who needed to believe in me was me. Yeah. Now this is obvious and we've all heard this before, but it really, really true. And once that penny dropped, it was like, right, I'm doing video production because I don't believe in myself. Right, bin that. I don't want to get up all day and doing video, kind of like doing a video. That's not what I'm here for. So I started focusing on the marketing and started to try and take a lesson in terms of working out where my skill set was. And what was I, there's a million more marketers out there, unfortunately. And why would anyone hire me? What made me difference? And that's where I focused on Mailchimp.
Fantastic.
See the segue. Clever segue.
I just want to focus on the confidence
Yep.
thing for a moment.
Totally.
When you said that the penny dropped, and I've heard that from quite a few self-employed people, that they constantly don't feel they're good enough.
No, totally.
And are constantly looking for somebody to perhaps help them. How did the gap between where you were and where you needed to be, how did you close that mentally? What was it about the penny that dropped?
Well, I think the first thing was actually having that epiphany, that moment when you suddenly realise, I know exactly where I was. I was on a training course up in Birmingham, and it was basically trying to drill into the who you are and the why, as it were. We've all heard the why. What Simon Sinek, yeah. Kind of like, what is your why? And I didn't have one. Kind of like, I don't have any kids, which is kind of like, I always get cynical when people turn and say, oh, my why is my kids and whatever. It's like, yeah, that's a cop-out. I don't have kids. I've got to come up with some why. Just because you've got kids, it doesn't mean that you're more motivated and driven than anyone else. Not saying that it does, but I'm not going to go. But it was like that. And then that was kind of like, suddenly when you realise that it is down to you, it's almost like, well, that's the first. What's the first step of solving a problem? Realising you've got a problem in the first place. Yeah. So first of all, it's the realisation that this was something that was going on in my head that I needed to deal with, and then secondly, because I'm an analytical person, it was then kind of like almost breaking that down and understanding where's that coming from, what's driving this, and then starting to put certain things in place that will address those core problems. So, I wouldn't necessarily say I've got daddy issues, but a lot of my career, my father didn't go to university. He's had a fantastic career, but he had one or two mistakes, and he says, you're not going to make the same mistakes. As I say, he was the one, I was the first person in our family to go to university. I got an MBA, and the reason I got an MBA was because he felt it was something that I needed to do. It wasn't something that was coming from me. And I think there was a realisation there that, kind of like I needed to plough my own path. And it's ironic, the fact that my dad is a mechanical engineer. And he said to me, you're not getting into engineering. And yet, ironically, I now call myself a marketing process engineer. So I go work that out. But I think it's first of all identifying there is a problem. There is something going up in here. And once you've done that, I think there's a natural inclination to start trying to address it. And what are the things? Why do you feel that you are a fraud? So recently, and this is an ongoing battle. Sounds like suffering from depression. It's nothing as serious as that. And don't mean to demean, say anything negative about that. But I'm ongoing depressed, and one of the things I've done is that I've now got a system that I follow. And we'll talk about this in the second half today, I've got a view of how marketing pulls together, which means I've now got documents. It means I've now got a structure. When I sit down with someone, it's not me winging it. It's not me coming it off into the head. It's like, right, okay, so this is how I work. Okay, this is what I do. Are you on board with this? And if they say yes, great. Then it's kind of like, it provides me, it gives me, it's not making, as it were, but it's having something tangible, something that you can put in front of a potential customer that means that it's not just you that they're buying, it's the concept and what you can bring to the table. And I think things like having a good quality website, things like having a structured communication process, being able to clearly and easily articulate what makes you different from every other person that is in your marketplace, All of those things are things that are pillars that you can kind of like build your business on. But by having those pillars, you're going to get a lot more confidence in terms of who you are and what you stand for. And I think that makes a difference.
There's also another knock-on effect of having what I term a framework around your business.
Definitely.
And creating that process is it just makes life easier.
Oh, totally.
So you've got much more time if you know that when a customer says yes and signs the contract, you then have a process rather than scrabbling around.
Totally.
And that can make a really big difference to the amount of time you spend. We have various systems in our business. We always think about the onboarding, but a lot of people don't think about once they've got that sale,
Totally.
what happens next. And it's a kind of scrabble of, like you said, to grab the bits and pieces. And it can be really difficult in a small business because you have different customers with different needs. But I always call it bespoke for off-the-peg prices.
Definitely.
And that's unfortunately what happens is people try to create a bespoke product and they don't realise that actually they need an off-the-peg product because they need a process around it, and if it needs customising, they should be charging a higher price.
Yeah. And it is that consistency of approach in kitchens, home automation, pet sitting, whatever. If you see, I've kind of like become almost obsessed with having a system, and I laughed when you used the phrase. I've got a phrase that is kind of like almost my Bible. The phrase, this thing's going to be, what happens next? I live my entire business through that phrase. What happens next? Because everything you do should have a what happens next. And once you know what happens next is, you need to work out how you can make what happens next more likely to happen. And just having that system gives you that support and gives you that confidence. Like I sat down with a client, kind of like a month and a half ago, first meeting I had with them, and, kind of like suddenly it was like, hey, I've got a system. I know what I'm talking. And it was kind of like suddenly my enthusiasm and passion in that meeting, as you can tell, I'm a very, very, very ebullient and enthusiastic individual. But suddenly it stepped to a next level because it's like, that's done. Kind of like, and he was saying, every other marketing person I've met hasn't got any pieces of paper or whatever. It's let's build the system. No, it's like, I've got a system. I've got something I follow. And that gives you credibility. And if you can get some form of consistency in what you do from a business point of view, if you have a way of doing it that you can apply it again and again and again, then that gives you that confidence. You may not have confidence in yourself, but you have confidence in the system. And if the system works, then that kind of like almost gives you confidence back because it's kind of like you're in kind of like you're directly related to the system that you're employing. And it just pans stuff.
A Dan Kennedy, to sort of back that up, I was listening to a Dan Kennedy talk. I've spoken about him before. He really is the go-to for me. And he was saying that when he was establishing his credentials at the beginning of the talk, he said, this is how I do this. This isn't to say this is the only way to do this, but this is the way I found that works.
Yeah.
And if you can establish that you have a system that works, then stop looking over your shoulder at other people and feeling like you're an imposter, because you actually have something that does what it says on the tin.
Yeah.
So I think that when you get that part of the puzzle in place, you can rely on it. That is your confidence to be able to go out there and say this works. And if you don't have a system that you can consistently apply from the consistent acquisition of new customers through to the delivery of what you're selling to those customers, then you're constantly making it up.
Totally.
So that's going to erode your confidence straight away.
Exactly.
You're going to constantly be making mistakes.
Yeah, it's the difference between what is confidence. Confidence is knowing what to do and knowing that it's the right decision.
And a sharp suit.
Yeah, yeah. All cool shoes. Cool shoes. Custom. It's a custom.
All right, so
Sorry, our motto is we're only as good as our last job. Does that leave us in the past then and not looking for the future?
in a certain sense, if you are you saying you use that in your marketing, or are you saying you use it internally?
With everything.
Okay.
Everything. If we don't get a return on that report, that's our vision to move forward. thinking while I'm listening to this now, is that actually holding us back and lacking confidence for us because we've got no push then? We're like, okay, that's done, I'm settled, I'm happy.
A way to get confidence, and I've used this on many people, is to find a purpose with your business that is bigger than your fear. Okay, so if you say to yourself, I want to retire when I'm 50, and it is a drop dead deadline that over the age of 50 I will retire and live doing all the things in my bucket list, etc., then if that is your focus and your driver, that will be bigger than anything that any wall you have to knock down, any problem that you overcome. So it's finding a purpose for your business that serves your life, so that you can go out and truly live the life that you want. I mean, we can get into sort of some of the head side of stuff, but if you have a feedback loop in your business that says, we check to make sure that we are doing what we say we're going to do consistently, and we feel that we're only as good as our last job, then that's a good feedback loop, because it's like, are we getting the right feedback from our customers that tells us we're delivering the right thing? Now, Disney have, whenever you go to a Disney store, if you go through the staff door, on the back of the staff door, it says smile, you're going on stage. Okay? And they have this idea that, you know, when you're out in front of the customer, you are presenting the Disney brand. So you wouldn't necessarily use the same communications that you would on stage as you would backstage when you're communicating maybe slightly more directly with team members. So it depends how your attitude to that statement is. If it's about quality assurance and saying, if we get a bad review or a negative thing, we literally stop the business and say, how did that happen and how do we prevent it from happening again? That's a great thing. But if you're going out to people and saying, we're only as good as our last job, well, it kind of doesn't say much about your business. I don't get any value as a customer from that.
Doesn't make you. You don't now. You know, it will. If you've got actually, how many people here proactively, regularly go out and ask for feedback and testimonials? Right. Okay. Those of you who do it, I'm sure that you get a degree of confidence from someone coming back and saying, actually, you know what, you're really good. You know, how do you build confidence? Well, there's confidence that comes from inside, confidence of having support systems, whatever. But there's confidence from other people saying, actually, you are pretty good, as it were. So the process of being only as good as your last job, we're all in that category. We're all going to be rated at that. And that does hopefully generate, and if you are suffering a little bit from am I good enough or whatever, put some processes in place to get testimonials, because those testimonials which tell you, hey, you are pretty good, that is going to give you that confidence. But again, I agree with Stuart. I wouldn't necessarily say that is something that's specific that makes you different. I mean, because knowing what you do, everyone in your business is only going to be as good as the last job. And it's not about that. It's about changing people's perceptions of what you do. So, as we discussed, what makes you different, and also changing the attitude and moving people who are using you so that instead of using you on an ad hoc basis, which does lend itself to the we're only as good as the back job. Actually, if you get someone on a 6-month or a 12-month contract, then you can, to some extent, you know, that only as good as the last one is not going to be as, you know, as powerful, because they're on a 6 or a 12-month contract, and it's slightly different.
Also, you can use the only good as our last job as a mantra for generating your testimonials. To if you have that feedback loop, which I talked about in the Jumpstart event, having that feedback loop of saying we get rated by our customers, and internally we know that if we get a 100% for a customer job, that's our goal, and if we get anything less than that, we have to drill into it to find out why we've got less than that. That's a great feedback loop, but it isn't necessarily something to lead with.
No.
I would be thinking more in terms of, as inventory clerks, what is our purpose? Why do we want people to use us, and why should people use us and not the competition? A point of value that the audience, your customers, are going to value.
Yep.
Yeah? Does that help?
And we'll probably cover this a little bit in the second half of today as well.
So, okay, we've explored some of the
The head stuff.
head stuff. I always find that fascinating.
I do, yeah.
I just had one customer telling me he feels like he's not working hard enough, but he's making the same amount of money. That's what your business is supposed to do. Anyway, I'm going to ask a two-word question. Why Mailchimp?
Why Mailchimp? Because no one else was doing it. Sounds like a really strange thing to say. Basically, as a marketer, there are lots of other people out there who do marketing. And as a marketer, if any one of you turned around and hired me or got me in to have a chat about your business, one of the things I'll be talking about is niching. Yeah, you all understand the concept of niching, all right? You know, and as a marketer, I didn't have a niche.
Hang on a second. Terry, what did I say? Niching.
Yeah, because the fact of the matter is that what I do, a lot of other people do exactly the same thing as me. So what makes me different? Now, being a kind of like I said, this 49%, not 50, 49% geek. I've always had a real good affinity with computers and systems. You know, my dad got me a computer back, back when home computers were just coming out. I got an Amstrad.
Oh.
Didn't have a Commodore or a Sinclair. I was an Amstrad boy with the tape deck next to it. Oh, it's great. But what it did is it took the fear away of me of computer systems, and I always thank my dad for that, because throughout my entire life I've not had a fear of computers. Don't get me wrong, I'm not the type of person who can build them and get inside of the electrics and bits and pieces, but they're very logical, and I am extremely logical in my approach. And so, about 10 years ago when I was working in corporate, I was starting to help people do some form of email marketing. Started using Mailchimp. It seemed fairly intuitive to me. It was one of a few that was out there. I just happened to start using it and got to know it. And what I realized very soon was that I actually knew it quite well. And people were starting to come to me and say, how do you do this? To the point where someone turned around and asked, is anyone able to run a training course on Mailchimp? And I waved my hand very strongly in the air and says, that was me. And I almost looked at Mailchimp as a way of first of all, it was a lever for me getting out of the video production sort of business, as it were. But it was something that was different. And what I realized is that, Mailchimp, it's not a complicated system. It's not, kind of like something you're going to be paying £100 a month to build complicated marketing systems. But it's the biggest one in the world. It's got nearly 10 million users. It does what it says on the tin. It's very good at what it does. Doesn't try and act like it doesn't. Doesn't try and do stuff that it can't do, and that shed loads of small and medium-sized businesses use it.
Hang on a second, just out of interest, how many people here have heard of Mailchimp? So you all know what we're talking about. I just suddenly had that.
Yeah, flash.
And how many people here use it currently in their business?
So basically what I realised was that this was an opportunity for me to different, and what I also realised was that a lot of my ongoing private client work, when I looked back at the first reason why those guys had a conversation with me, it was because I used Mailchimp. Now, as what's happened with my business is that Mailchimp for me is, if you pardon the phrase, it's a lead magnet. I do help with people with Mailchimp. I do help them on a structural side. I do understand the ins and outs. But for a lot of people that I've worked with on Mailchimp, it's understanding where Mailchimp fits in the bigger picture of their marketing and understanding how they are, building that system, as it were.
Okay, just to stop you there, because there's some value in there. So we're talking about, on the 20th of February, I'm talking about
lead magnets.
Lead magnets. And it's really interesting to see two things here. One, you're using Mailchimp as a lead magnet because it's your target customer is using it, struggling with it, but you know that there is a process that needs to be built on the back of it.
Definitely.
So your services for building that process
are
indicated by somebody saying, yes, I've got a problem with Mailchimp.
That
is a very interesting way of looking at solving a small problem as a lead magnet. And the second part of that, which is really quite interesting, is finding a problem that enough people have that allows you to then
have a conversation.
Fish in a much bigger pool, because the people that are raising their hand saying, I've got this problem, indicate that actually they've probably got a much bigger problem.
Yeah. Does anyone here use another program apart from Mailchimp to do their email marketing? All right, okay. You're not my target market. Now, it doesn't mean to say I can't help you. Doesn't mean to say that there isn't value in what I'm saying. But ultimately, there are, 15, 20 people in this room? I can help 19 other people. Why would I spend my time trying to convince you to use Mailchimp where potentially 19 other people are already using it, and I can have a conversation and basically put my value in front of them? Yeah, and that's the key thing. It's not about ruling people out as much as it's ruling people in and understanding. But I use that to illustrate an example, and this is for you, for all of you. The fact of the matter is that a lot of you, your niche, as it were, is your geographic location. So a couple of you I know are in kind of like in the product business, as it were. You've got physical locations that you're selling stuff from. Yeah, that means that your niche is going to be geographically driven. All right, but a lot of other you don't have necessarily that location, and also have got a number of other people. Like, why would I use you as a kitchen and home designer, as it were, compared to anyone else? Now, if you turned around and says, well, actually, you know what? I specialise in granite. I specialise in top-level granite. I know granite more than anyone else. Well, the fact of the matter is that that's probably going to rule in an awful lot of people. It makes you different from every other kitchen, kind of like designer out there. And it means that you're going to be able to have a lot more conversations, because people will either say, yes, I'm granite, or no, I'm not granite. If they say, no, I'm not granite, you don't worry about those, because there's more than enough people who are saying, yes, they're granite. And you're going to go, well, actually, we can design it, we can build it, and I understand, how we have to structure the kitchen to make sure that we're incorporating granite or marble or whatever in it. And it just means that you're being slightly different. Whether it's bookkeeping.
Just out of interest, that actually creates quite a nice opportunity. And I don't know if Russell is a granite
specialist, is he?
But just from thinking, about your business in a certain way, you could become the granite connoisseur. Come round and we'll have a granite testing, and we'll show you all the different granites, and that starts a conversation, because when people are thinking about their kitchen, they may be thinking about the work surfaces more than everything else. So it opens up that conversation. So you immediately could be saying, let's have a granite tasting party, and people are like, what? But do you know what? That makes a difference, because people go, what's that? And all you need is that foot in the door of their attention to be able to say, we're a little bit different.
Yeah, it's the conversation. It's the thing that starts the conversation. It's the thing that means that when you open your mouth, people aren't going to go, oh, yeah. It's going to be, oh, actually, you know what? That's different. And I've got a great believer when people go networking or whatever, they want to put people into boxes. All right. Naturally, as humans, we want to categorize people. That's the way that we do it. Like, one of the things I do whenever I come to any meeting like this, I kind of like make sure, because I'm crap remembering names as well, I've got a list of everyone's.
No. You're not good at remembering names at the moment.
No. No, I'm comfortable with that. I'm comfortable being crap at it. But I know, but I write them all down. I've written down all of your, kind of like the work that you do, and that's allowed, kind of that means that I can sit here and I can be relevant to you. But it's you guys. It's understanding, why would someone have a conversation with you? And if you can be put into a box, but then once you're in that box, say what makes you different from everyone else in this box. I put you in the kitchen designer box, yeah? So what makes you different from every other kitchen designer? And whatever it is, something like, well, we specialise in doing granite, or we specialise in shaker-style kitchens, or whatever. At least then you're different from other people, and that generates a conversation. Forever Living. From your point of view, it's understanding. Well, yeah, there's lots of people out there. There are lots of people who do Forever Living products, right? Well, why would I buy from you? So is it because of the fact that you've got a specific area in interest? Is it, kind of like, are you interested in the health benefits? Are you interested in the weight loss benefits? Is it the cleanse? Is it the bits and pieces? But that means everyone here. And I would argue that makes you no different from everyone else. If you said, my passion is helping working mums, I'm just picking that out of the air. Suddenly you're different and you're more memorable, because if you're like me and you've been to a fair number of networking meetings, you've met a fair number of Forever Living people, just like Utility Warehouse or any of the other franchises that you actually, as soon as I mentioned that. But the fact is, if you look at those people, who are the ones that stand out? Who are the ones that when you meet someone who does the same thing as lots of other people, how do you remember that person? And the reason you remember them is because they told them there was something different. Like this Utility Warehouse who turned around and says, I specialise in working with families. Yeah? And he explained why that was something that he was interested in. But immediately, it wasn't, oh, he's just another Utility Warehouse person. It was he's the family guy, the family person, as it were. And I think that's where we all find it very easy to fall into the habit of saying what we do. But if you could turn around and say, like I think like you did, Eloise, you said, you're a web designer, but you specialise in creative industries and whatever. You're not ruling people out, you're ruling people in.
I think part of the problem as well, especially when you first start, a lot of businesses tend to target everyone.
Exactly.
So they make their copy quite generic for everyone.
Yeah.
And 9 times out of 10, I see web agencies, and they just say the same thing. We make awesome jobs.
Oh.
What does that mean?
Yeah.
What value is that providing?
No, exactly.
Or they use the dread word solution.
Business solutions to suit your
I
needs.
just feel as a personal deep.
But this is what I'm saying, is that, and I agree completely, when you start out in business, you want to work with everybody. And the fact is that a lot of you will turn around and say, actually, you know what, I can work with you. You can, if you're pet sitting, I work with anyone who's got pets. Right, that's a bloody big market. If I turn around to you and say, right, I've got 500 people who I know who've got pets. Can I give them all to you? You go, I can't deal with that. I'm just one person. And that's why you need to focus and drill down a little bit so that you understand who your customer is, understand what makes you different and how you're going to appeal them. And this is the difference between what I classify as target markets, let me rephrase it. I've got broad market, target market, and avatar. All right? And I'll mention this a little bit later on, but I'll do it now. Broad market is basically anyone who could buy your stuff. All right? Target market is the people who you want to buy your stuff. And then avatars are individuals within that target market that you want to communicate specifically to, because they are someone that you've got a direct relationship with. And it's something I've seen a lot that people talk about. They mix up mix up target market and avatars. Yeah. So a target market, if you sell Shumi, your target market, your broad market is anyone with pets. Your target market is going to be people in a geographic region who are working. Because ultimately, to be a pet sitter or whatever, usually, or certainly a dog walker, if that's the type of thing you get involved in, they're going to be out during the day. They've got kids, they've got other responsibilities, which means they can't take care of the pets themselves. So that's their target market. But then within that, you've got, kind of like a small family. Wife works during the day, husband's out during the day, 2 kids to school, no one's looking after the pet. Then there's another one who basically is spent 3 months out of the country every year, avoiding taxes or disappearing off to, travelling to go into the sunshine, but they can't take their pets overseas. So suddenly you start developing these specific avatars, and the avatars is how you can communicate. Because the fact of the matter is, we all speak to each of you. See, I could sit down with each of you afterwards and have a conversation, and I would tailor my conversation to you. Just like you would tailor it to me, knowing what I do and I know what you do, all right? We do that naturally as humans. We tailor our conversation to an individual, all right? Well, from a marketing point of view, that's what we should be trying to drive at. The more specific we can be in our communication, the more the person who hears it is going to be like, yeah, that's me.
There's some real value there.
We got sidetracked off, didn't we, off Mailchimp completely. I knew we would.
It's fine. One of the pieces of value, and in fact I've worked with Katrine on her website, is when you understand your customer, it makes everything you do, or your target customer, your target avatar, it makes everything you do so much easier, because it's like writing a letter to a friend. It's like communicating with people who will get what you do. And I did some copy work with a company yesterday, and they created an artificial intelligence crypto trading bot that works with a basket of traders, and those two things are ahead of the market by 120%. And they're in beta phase at the moment, and they wrote all of this copy, and it was way too much crypto jargony. And I boiled it all down, and one of the things that made it easy was they told me who their exact target market was. You know, it was guys between the ages of 20 and 35 who have a technology background, they've got a disposable income of there, and it just made, I could visualise that person in front of me and just explain it to them like a mate. Oh, this thing, it does, you know, it puts these two things together and makes it much easier for you to make money rather than lose money. So it makes everything that you decide from that point on. Would the target audience that I just would love to have a conversation with, would they get this?
Yeah.
From the slang you use, the jargon, the images, you know, does this communicate to these people? If I had a room full of them, would they get it? So you're absolutely right. And it takes us all the way back to how you got yourself a Mailchimp.
Yeah.
Now, Mailchimp is your lead magnet.
It is,
creates the opportunity to have the right conversations.
Yep.
So how did you come up with the idea of having a Facebook group to provoke that?
Right, so the Facebook group, and this is kind of like, the reason I created the Facebook group was because I had no confidence in myself. Okay, it's a running theme there, but no, but it's true, and the reason is that, right, if I'm so good at Mailchimp, why would anyone hire me? You know, kind of like I can talk it, but you know, why would anyone come to me and go, "You're the person we need to speak to"? Basically, I was at an event just coming up to 3 years ago, and I was chatting to a couple of contemporaries, peers as it were, and I can't remember who, but the idea had been bubbling away of creating a Facebook group. And the reason I wanted to create the Facebook group was to give me credibility. Oh, I'm the person who's created this group, and if I get enough people in the group and they see me as a Mailchimp expert, then naturally I become a Mailchimp expert, because I'm the face on the top of the page, as you were. So essentially, and this was, you know, kind of like, say, 3 years ago. So groups have been around for a while, but I realised, and I did a bit of research, that there wasn't really amazingly the only Mailchimp groups on Facebook were one in Brazil and one in Holland. And I was like, I think the biggest English language group that there was about 500 members. And I was like, no, there's more, you know, kind of like Facebook is so ubiquitous and everyone's on it. It's kind of like there's going to be more. So I basically launched the group. I launched it at that event.
What's the name of the
Mailchimp Answers. It says Chimp Answers, so that I don't get slammed by copyright because it's using Mailchimp there. But anyway, that's another long story. But anyway, I launched the group, and I was lucky in the fact that I launched it at an event where almost the guy who was running the event was one of these peers, and he actually got up on stage and just said, "Oh, Robin's launched this group." And there was, you know, it was about 20, 30 people in the room who immediately joined the group. So I had a little bit of groundswell there. And then I started posting in it and started putting videos in it, and those seemed to be getting good feedback. Again, confidence, you know, how do you overcome confidence? Have lots of people tell you you're great. It always helps. And then it just started to grow from there. And I was lucky in the fact that I got in early. I got in before there was any other real competition in there. It worked from an SEO point of view because it had the word Mailchimp in the title. And that's the one. Yeah, there you go. And it basically just started to develop and grow. And it's got to the point now where I launched this 3 years ago, or just under 3 years ago. You'll probably be the 6,500th member. 6,499 it was, yeah. So 6,500 members worldwide. They join it. I'm the one who basically accepts them. I'm the one who's got the big cheesy picture at the top, so they recognise me immediately as the person who created this group. Regularly people join the group and actually address queries to me, not realising that there's 6,500 other people in that group, and there's quite a lot of people who, to be honest, probably know more about Mailchimp in certain areas than I do. Obviously I don't say that, but that they are. And it just kind of suddenly, I've now created this community where people are coming in. There's no selling apart from me it's my group, so I can kind of like do it subtly underneath. But the fact of the matter is that I've grown this to the point where now, when people turn around and say to me, well, how can you prove to be a Mailchimp expert? I can say, well, I've run the biggest group in the world. And as far as I'm aware, there is no other groups on any other platforms or communities, any other platforms, that are as big as this. So I can basically make the claim that I'm basically running the largest community of Mailchimp users in the world.
Okay, can we just drill into that a little bit, because I'm sure there'll be people here interested in
Oh, definitely.
some of the activities that you used to drive from 20, 30 initial sign-ups to 6,500.
Yep.
There's a massive gap in the middle there.
Yeah.
What sort of things did you undertake and do that helped to drive the engagement with that group?
If you believe that having a Facebook group for your business, or for more importantly the customers of your business, then there are a couple of things that I kind of like found worked for me and worked for a number of other people. All right, for me, the SEO side of things really helped grow the group. People would go to Mailchimp and go to Facebook. They would type Mailchimp in, and as a consequence, my group would be one of the ones that they saw. And as soon as you see, and it's the biggest, and if you've got a problem with Mailchimp, hence the name of the group, Mailchimp Answers, you go there to get answers. So people would naturally do that. The other thing
Just to interrupt there. I see this happen quite a lot. People call their Facebook group after their business, and what you need to do is to call it after the problem that people will be searching for.
Yes,
okay,
very
you can
important.
introduce your business at a later stage. At the point where they want answers to a problem, for Mailchimp, they turn up and see Mailchimp Answers. It's the perfect result. It tells them exactly what to expect in that group.
Yeah, and I just so happened to call that, because I did that right at the start, and I came up with a name. That's where I got to use that, create a brand around it. So almost the Facebook group came first, and then I created the brand around that.
Did you not call it Mailchimp Q&A to start?
No, it's always been Mailchimp Answers. Always.
In my head, I've got Mailchimp Q&A.
No, but it's kind of like but that's the thing. And that's a very good point. If you're going to create it around what people are going to get from it. It's not about your I want you all to write this down. All right, I am not my customer. It's one of the biggest lessons that you can learn. It's a realization that you are not your customer. All right, and if you understand who your customer is and the problems they're facing, then that will change a lot, if not all, of the way that you focus and develop your marketing, and that relates to the Facebook groups as well. So first of all, you need to make sure that if you can come up with a good name, because people invariably, to start off with, will search for it. You know, if I was kind of like looking for Borden community, Borden, and if this was one of the groups that actually was there, then you'd type Borden in first. So that's the first thing, thinking about naming, because certainly to start off with, before you're generating momentum, that helps. Secondly, accept anyone. Don't get fussy about it, because this is a community, and what will happen is that people who value the community will stay, and people who don't will go.
I've got a caveat to that, because Facebook has recently made a change where people can join groups as pages.
Yes.
And if you start a group and you allow pages in, what happens is, one, it becomes very commercialised, so people start slipping in sales references.
I'll be coming to that in a little bit.
But the second one is, they don't find out about those people, and as a group facilitator, you should be facilitating a community. And if you've got a community full of pages, who are those people? They're not a good way to engage with individuals.
Exactly.
What's happening, I know I did pet sitting, but actually one of the reasons I'm here is because my background is sales marketing and development, and I'm putting my ducks in a row, as Alan was saying the other day, to relaunch my old consultancy business, and I'm focusing on well-being, that call them.
Yep.
And my co-founder and I have set up the Liphook Wellbeing Group.
Mm-hmm.
We have a Facebook group, and exactly that was happening. We were getting
Businesses as opposed to individuals. Yeah.
So our selection is that you have to be local, but you have to be a human, because exactly as you're saying, we want to be speaking and engaging and recruiting them for our events.
I think that matters, certainly from my. I think it's understanding what the group is there for. So my group is a global group, as it were. I'm not as fussy about whether you're a page or an individual. However, I am very, 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 very clear about the rules of the group. Literally, you come in and anything which is construed as selling in that group gets slammed, links, other bits and pieces. I've got a guy in Belgium who actually, and he's earned the right to do a little bit of lead generation because he's been really helpful. And I was transparent to him. I said, he came in and he started talking about stuff and I said, tone it down, can you just help? Start off with help, and if you do enough helping and you see that you are actually helping people, then I'm not going to turn around and if you slip in a subtle promotional message every so often, I'm not going to worry too much about it as long as you respect the rules of the group. So make sure that you've got clear rules and guidelines of what people can post and talk about and what they can't, and you need to police that very, very strongly indeed, because what's happened now is that as soon as someone comes into the group, comes into my group and posts some form of promotional message, usually I'll get 2 or 3 people who email me straight away and say, this is, this post has been reported, because they know that's not what this group is about. So that's kind of like important. And the third thing as well is you've got to invest time in it. You can't, it's not one of those things that you're just going to sit back and go, well, hey, I've created my group, right, what's next? All right, you do need to put time into it. Now, it's funny now, I'm not spending hardly any time at all in the group now because it's reached that point of almost self-proliferation. There's about 4 or 5 other people in there who are quite good at Mailchimp, and they're not selling, but they're answering the questions. And typically what happens is I'll get, kind of like a load of people ask questions overnight. By the time I've got in the morning, all the Americans have already bloody answered them, as it were. But the fact of the matter is that kind of like when you start off with, you do need to invest time. You do need to add value. You do need to do Facebook Lives and demonstrate what, kind of like give value for free. All right, because otherwise people aren't going to get benefit. But regularly when I ask people, why did you join? Some people turn around and say they did a search. But quite a lot of people now are getting recommended. People in this community, if someone turns around to you, if you've got someone in the business community and they asked you, do you know anyone who knows Mailchimp? You may turn around and go, actually, yeah, I saw Robin. He came to a presentation at, kind of like Borden Hub a couple of weeks ago. He knows Mailchimp. Yeah, go online and look for Mailchimp answers. That's what's happened because
you're on Facebook. Somebody's
exactly.
I've got this problem with Mailchimp. I just tag you.
Exactly, and that's the way it works. It's so easy to do that now. So kind of like from that point of view, you've got to deliver the value because the value means people are going to come regularly. They're going to realise that they're getting a load of stuff, advice for free, as it were. And as a consequence, they're going to recommend other people to come into that. Now, I was trying to build a community. And, of course, now I'm in a situation where I've got 6,500 people in it. And my mastermind group are basically shouting at me and saying, you're making no money out of this group, which is not true. But it's like, what's the next step? So I'm currently looking at how I can actually take a proportion of that group and deliver some form of additional value where they will pay something for it. But that was not my original driver. My original drive was purely, how am I going to be seen as being an expert?
Well, Janet Murray, who did the same and had 16,000 members, has
Yep.
closed hers down because her mastermind group was saying, how are you making money out of it?
Yeah.
And it was taking up too much time.
And that's where now it's an understanding of how much time are you prepared to put in, how much time can you put in to some extent in comparison to the other marketing pillars that you've probably got in your business, because I'm sure we'd all love to spend, well, maybe it's just me who'd love to spend all of my time marketing my own business, but I've actually got to earn money and supply and help other people as well. So you've got to understand what you're prepared to put in and be very clear what your objectives are. Matthew. Yeah. Yeah.
Are there any sort of sensible equations to how much time you put into a group of 6,500 people? Do you manage that entirely on your own?
I've now just before Christmas, I've got someone in who's basically now supporting me from an administration point of view. They're accepting new members, kind of like when people don't automatically, I have to approve them. So it's a private group as opposed to a public group. So public group, you can just join, anyone can join. Private group, you need, kind of like membership authority to join. So this is a private group, so I've got someone to do that. But that is, yeah. So up until that point, but then, like I said, it's a question of to be honest, there is no answer. And the reason there is no answer is because that it's down to your marketplace. It's down to what you're trying to do, who you're speaking to, and what you're capable of. So, for example, now, kind of like 2 years ago, when the group was starting to, I remember I got married in March, just coming up to 2 years ago, and the group hit 1,000 the day before I got married. So I just casually dropped that into my wedding speech. But no, it's an important day, because that was, for me, just the whole, it had grown. Up to that point, I was spending a lot of time. Every query that was coming in, I was trying to be the first person to answer it. And it basically, it was a self-fulfilling confidence thing. And we keep coming back to that. It's really important. But it meant that people would go away happy and would start sharing the group. Once you get to a certain point where you're no longer the only expert in that group, then to some extent there are other people in that group who, as long as you're clear that they're not selling, they're just helping and answering questions, then I've now actually I'm spending, at the moment I'm probably spending an hour or two at the most in the group a week, averaging out over the week. Profile. They by being seen as being, and also there's an element of altruism, of wanting to help other people, to help them, kind of grow and develop. But a number of them, it's because they do a similar type of thing, and they want to be seen as being kind of like an expert, as it were.
How do you keep a lid on the quality of advice they're giving? Because your name is inextricably
Linked with that.
to this group, so your reputation is very much on top of
Yeah.
everything.
Which,
And if people have joined the group and they're quite new,
yeah,
and they ask questions,
yeah,
and to be blunt, the advice they get out of the group
Yeah.
is crap.
yes.
How do you manage that so that you maintain a standard of advice?
Well, I think fortunately there isn't many instances where the advice that's being given is crap, because the majority of people who are coming into the group have got a technical problem. It's one of my big challenges with the group, actually, is that people join the group and they say, how do I do this? And it's not a judgment of how they do it. There is actually a specific answer. And when there's a specific answer, they usually get that answer from someone else. I kind of like, if every response that goes in, because I'm in the group, kind of like, I look at I may not answer all the queries now, but I read them all. And if someone's come in and I look at the answers, and if the answer is incorrect, I will say, this is wrong, don't do it this way, do it the other way, as it were. But I suppose the fact is that because it's one of those things where there have been occasions where one or two people are giving out regularly bad advice, and I've actually had to quiet word with them and say, look, kind of like, you're wrong, this is not the way you need to do it, all right? But the majority of people now, and there's a group of about 5 or 6 people who I see regularly answering queries, all of them know their stuff. And they've almost earned the right to answer those questions. So it's just through almost constant vigilance, going in there on a regular basis. And you don't have to answer every query.
I've moderated on a number of Facebook groups and have a few myself, and also on forums, websites with forums. And what tends to happen is 80% of the people who join will lurk, they will never post.
Oh, totally.
So out of those 6,500 people, I would say there's probably only 300 or 400 who are regular
Yes,
contributors.
so what generally happens is that people will join the group, they'll go, woo, I'm in the group, they'll ask a question, they'll get that question answered, and then I'll never hear or see from them again. So even though I say I've got the biggest group of Mailchimp, it's a great thing, but in actual fact, the majority of people aren't actively engaged because it's a question and answer group, it's a problem solving group. And one of my biggest challenges over the next 6 to 12 months is to start adding value into that group. Now that I've got enough people in there, I need to start changing it from this is how you solve this is how you solve this specific problem in Mailchimp, to what should you be writing in your emails? How should you structure it? What's right from a marketing point of view? And starting changing the focus and actually building a bit more, the analogy I use is at the moment, people are treating that group like a car mechanic. They've got a problem with their car, they go into the group and they get it fixed. And then they're off driving and they don't need the car mechanic again until something breaks down. What I'm trying to do is change the positioning of that group so it's not just about fixing cars, it's about being a performance specialist. So I'll tune up the engine, I'll get you driving better, as it were. And by doing those things, you're not just ticking boxes, you're actually adding value to your business.
So this comes back to what you were talking about previously, and it's about the purpose. Why have you got this group?
Yeah.
Now, you did it for a confidence thing and to be able to use in terms of a marketing
Marketing
positioning
message, yeah,
piece.
definitely.
But when you start a Facebook group, ask yourself, what next?
Totally. Why are you doing it?
Why are you doing this? What do you want the outcome to be? If it's to grow a large group and have 6,500 people, 10,000, 50,000 people in a group, that doesn't put money in the bank. It's like people saying, I got loads of likes and shares. That helps with engagement. It's part of the marketing piece. But likes and shares don't pay your mortgage.
No.
And it's what happens next when they come into the group. Like you say, you did it for one purpose and you're now pivoting it to focus, because you can do that.
Totally.
Because you've got 6,500 people, a number of those are engaged. But it gives you the chance to generate more leads from that. So that's what you're going to do next.
Yeah, and you know, and that's not to say that I've, you know, people turn around and say, oh, 6,500, my mastermind group, oh, it's 6,500 people, you're making no money. That's not true. A number of my customers that are currently private clients of mine, who are paying me for retainer to help them for their ongoing marketing, they've come to me because initially they had a problem with Mailchimp. You know, again, you know, not to pick on you, Russell, but to illustrate an example, you know, if you turn around and said you're the granite person, as it were, and you made a big noise about how you really understand that. The fact of the matter is that there's enough people out there who are interested in granite as a possible solution that even if they came to you and says, is granite right for this? And you go, no, you're best to do laminate or whatever. They're still having a conversation with you, and you can turn around and go, yeah, right, I am the granite, but doesn't mean to say I can't do other stuff. But you've got themselves into a conversation, and you can then take that conversation to the next level. So it's understanding that if you're going to go down the Facebook group, and I'm not suggesting everyone should do it, there's lots of different pillars of marketing that we can all adopt, and this is just one of them that's worked for me. But understand that why you're doing it and what happens next. And if you know what happens next, I mean, this is the biggest thing, all right? And you know, this leads in a little bit to what we're going to talk about after break, which is probably 10 minutes ago. We'll have a break.
What happens next is a short
exactly.
break.
One of the things that I've looked at, and this is where I've developed this system, as it were, is an understanding of how you build relationships with people from a business point of view. All right. Now, think from a personal point of view. All right. You're back in your early years. You found someone who's really attractive. You're interested in them, and you managed to persuade them to go out on a date. Yeah. And you're there at this really nice restaurant, and you're trying to order some posh wine because you think that's going to impress them or whatever. And the first thing out of your mouth is, will you marry me? Right? What do you think the reaction to that is going to be? Right? And yet, exactly. And yet, I can walk into a networking meeting with a load of people I've never met before, and one of the first 3 conversations I have is from someone who turns around and goes, oh, I'm an accountant. How are you doing with your current accountant? Should we have a conversation? And I'm like, hang on a minute, I've only just met you. And that's where the understanding that you need to know where various aspects of your marketing pillars are. So where is the Facebook group, if you decide to do it, in that building a relationship? So in the instance, it probably is in the early dating phase. Someone may come in there, they'll find out about you in the Facebook group, and if they value what you've put into that group, then they'll pick up the phone and have a conversation with you. They're not going to buy from you straight away, but this is a kind of like, it's almost like speed dating. You know, you could liken a Facebook group to speed dating. Gives you a chance to find there's a fit, but then there's still a long journey until you're actually ready to settle down, have kids, and spend the rest of your life with them. And I think from a marketing point of view, the key thing you need to understand is whatever you're doing from a marketing point of view, what is it? What's the next step in the process? And how can you break those steps down so they're easy to take, and as a consequence, they're actually driving, you're able to take people through that journey to being, the best business relationship you can have.
I've got a graphic, and I'll put it into the notes for this talk, which shows the funnel and how it funnels down into a mail CRM, and how proximity to your business creates a different conversation, perhaps. And I'll put that in, and it will show you how the different various aspects of online come together and how you should be funneling people towards either a phone call, conversation, or into a marketing.
That's still the next half hour of what I'm going
That
to talk
is-
after.
I know,
That's what
yeah,
I'm going to do.
yeah.
That's what
So
we're
that
going to do.
neatly introduces us into the break, and when we come back, we'll be talking about the customer path and Robin's process,
And where-
which he's
and-
spoken about.
And where email marketing fits in.
And-
Because I'm sure you all came here thinking, here's the Mailchimp guy. We're talking about Mailchimp, and I've barely mentioned it, to be honest.
But
But,
we'll be talking more about Mailchimp then.
a little bit more, yeah.
Literally 5 minutes, top up your cups, and we'll see you back here. Talking to Robin Adams from Mailchimp Answers.
Yeah.
Is that the
No, my official business, my marketing business is called Perfect Blend. Perfect Blend, yes. But I use the brands Chimp Answers and Mailchimp Answers within this particular community. I can't use the brand Mailchimp Answers anywhere apart from the Facebook group because Mailchimp get very snotty, and I've already had a Facebook page and a YouTube account shut down because it actually had the word Mailchimp in it. So now it's kind of like, it's now Chimp Answers, as it were. Just because I'm a big advocate of them, got a Facebook group, they don't care. They're a big business, as it were. But those are the rules, so that's where Chimp Answers has actually come from, as it were. Although if you do type in Mailchimp Answers, it does redirect to the Chimp Answers. No, to be honest, how shall I put it? They don't give a monkeys. No, the fact of the matter is that the Facebook group is, even though it's the biggest in the world, it's 6,500, they've got over 10 million customers. So really, it's a drop in the ocean. They're very, very protective of their brand, but this is where, because a Facebook group is deemed as being a community of people, that's why it can be called Mailchimp. Whereas a Facebook page, which is individual about a business, is about a business, as it were, and that's where I kind of like fell foul. I set it. I knew this was probably going to happen, and it was really just a matter of time until they turned around and said, no, you can't have a Facebook page. And I tried to plead and said, look, I'll change the name and whatever. But again, small, kind of like drop in the ocean from their point of view. So now what I do is just make sure that all of my commercial communication is done on Chimp Answers, and the only Mailchimp Answers that I've got is the Facebook group. Very clear on that.
Okay, so we were talking about good marketing structures.
Yep.
Good structures. We've handed out some pieces of paper.
Yeah.
Perhaps you could
Illustrate them.
take us through
Right.
how Mailchimp fits in, and how people can use it.
Okay, all right, so basically what I've put out is this, I was talking about this new structure and system that I've now adopted over the last few months, and basically what I've done is I've put it down in a sheet. This is the bit that I give to people, which makes me feel like I know what I'm talking about, as it were. But it's true, but it's great. There's nothing in here that I would say is particularly original. It's taking something and a couple of different models I've seen and basically bringing them together into terms of what I do. But what I found is it basically allows anyone that I'm sitting down with, instead of suffering from, have you all come across shiny thing syndrome? Yeah? Right, okay. Has anyone heard of Facebook Messenger? Yeah? Is it something of interest to you? Okay. Okay, basically Facebook Messenger is the next thing that people are going to be getting really excited about from a marketing point of view. But for 99% of businesses out there, it's a shiny thing. It's actually something that they think, oh, I've got to do that, and then it doesn't actually help. And the reason it doesn't help is because they don't understand why they're doing and where it fits on that customer journey, or in my case, the customer path. So what I've got here is I've got two documents. One is a sheet that you can take away and fill out at a later stage. All right, so, and if you want to, I can email a PDF across to you afterwards.
It'll be in the
Okay,
group.
yeah, okay. Giving away my collateral, my IP's free. No. But the other one, the Monopoly board, as it were, that's basically how I view marketing. And it's understanding that everything you do from a marketing, like I said, is part of a process. So what I'll do is I'll just briefly walk through this, so basically say, like how it all fits together. But what it's then is it's taking that and saying, well, applying it to your business and understanding where, kind of like what are the stages that your business goes through, and then saying, right, well, where are the problems and where can I use some form of marketing to lubricate the process? So like I said, my entire marketing philosophy, in fact, if I ever write a book, it'll be called What Happens Next. And it's a question of, first of all, what happens next, and secondly, how do you make what happens next more likely to happen? How do you lubricate it so that when they turn around and they know what's next in their customer journey, they go, well, obviously I'm going to do it. Why wouldn't I do it? It's so obvious that this is the next thing to do. The next thing to do is to pick up the phone or to put an email in for whatever. Yeah, I'm going to do that. And that's what you want. You want to break it down, because coming back to that idea of, meeting someone on the first date and asking them to marry you, what you want to do is you want to break that down into smaller, easily digestible steps. And almost, if you think of that, think of a step ladder, all right? If you're trying to get a customer to go up a step ladder, if those steps are too big, they're going to struggle. So what you need to do is you need to bring those steps down. So instead of making one big jump, they're making 3 small steps. Don't have a
Run missing.
Exactly, because there's a big gap, and that's where, if you look at your process, and this is something that when I work with all of my customers, this is the first thing that I do with them, is I walk through their existing process. We find out where it breaks down, because usually it does break down, all right, and then we understand where you actually need to improve things, then how you can make it better. And that's where on the actual worksheet, on the left-hand side, you've got what you're doing at the moment, and on the right-hand side, you've got things that you need to improve in. All right, and I guarantee that if you follow this process, you will step away from the shiny thing syndrome.
Okay,
You'll step away from it.
So let's start. Where do we start?
We start. Surprisingly enough, there's a big box here. It says start here. So it's a bit like Monopoly, as it were. So basically, if you start off in the right-hand corner, all right, and essentially the first 3 things that you need to really get an understanding of, and these are separate documents that I've got, is basically, number 1, knowing who you are and what your product actually is. And we're talking about here articulating your product not in terms of the features, I'm sure you've heard this phrase before, but of the benefits. What are the benefits that you provide to people? All right? Because ultimately that is going to be one of the key things that's going to come back to as you go through kind of like this entire journey with a person. So first of all that. Then you've got the customer avatar. Now, I believe some of you did this last week at a mastermind. You're asked to do avatars and dig into it. So you've already got a little bit of understanding, right? But the purpose that you create a customer avatar is so that you can get under their skin and really understand what they want to hear. And that's where you can go into the something I've created, which is this Ponzi name, message transition sheet. But basically the idea is to understand a customer, where they are today, before they've encountered you, and where they will be after they've experienced you, as it were. So I break it down. What have they got today? So kind of like, this is where I go back to my notes to see who we've got here. So Liz. She's it, Liz. So
Lovely lady with the glass.
no. I just so you basically so beforehand they don't have baskets, and afterwards they have a basket. Very simply put. Yeah. But all right, so picking on that. But then the second question is, how do they feel? Beforehand, they feel a little bit, how shall I put it, they feel like there's a hole in there, their lounge is not complete. Afterwards, there's like, yeah, that fits in, that adds to the whole ambience of it, okay? And then you start getting into what their average day is. All right, so what's their average day before they've encountered your product, and then how is it afterwards? Well, they come home in the evening and they're looking at that vacant space, but now they're coming home and it's something that's nice. It makes the whole environment feel so much nicer. And then you've got status, because we're all very much motivated by status. So what happens is suddenly, people walk in and they'll go, oh, look, you've got that's a nice centerpiece or whatever. And that's going to raise their perceived status. People are going to look at them and go, oh, they know a little bit. They're something that's nice. People are going to, say, well, where did I get that? Where did you get that from? Okay, and then you translate that. And the last level that I've got is what I call the fairy story. And the fairy story is almost, they are the hero of the fairy story. Where are they at the start and where are at the end? Now, it all sounds, you're possibly somebody saying, it sounds a little bit cheesy, sounds a little bit, but the fact is that if you go through that process, what you do is you start to really get under the skin of the person that you're communicating to, and you understand what really is in their heart, why they're buying your stuff, but also what some of their objections are. Why won't they go for you? So the fact of the matter is that you're not selling and I'm being glib here to illustrate the example, but you're not selling baskets as much as you're selling stylish home accessories that will be the envy of all of your friends, right? And that suddenly is the kind of like message that you're going across. You're not selling home automation, you're selling the ability to show off.
We do it on the fact that we save so many tasks because you've got a fully automated house, we're selling you a time.
Yeah, so, but that's for one target, and this is why if you know your target markets, you've got one target market who's really interested in saving time. But there's another, sorry, not target market, one avatar, and then another avatar could be the kind of like the boy who just wants to show off. And suddenly the messaging that you're going to go to that second person who wants to show off, who's in it for the flash, as it were, and wants to bring people around because they want to show, oh, press this button, look, lights come down and the TV tunes in and stereo sound appears. That's what they're motivated by, which is a different target market. And if you understand each of those different avatar, I always get my target, that's why I'm clear about this. If you get different messaging for each of your avatars, if you can get people to identify those people, they're the type of people who, so you could almost go on your website and actually have, what type of person are you? Are you, you'd almost, and I'm not saying you should definitely do this, but it's almost, if you are a person who's just, cash rich, time poor, and they just want everything slick, here's the solution for you. Do you want to dazzle people and show off? Well, here's the solution for you. Do you just want to have movie nights? So you're buying home automation because you want to create a movie night feel. Well, here's the package for you. Each of those are different customer avatars, and because you've understood who they are, what's driving them, what they feel, how they're perceived by other people, and what they want out of it, you're able to tailor your message to each of those so that you're appealing to them, and they're going to go, well, obviously I'm going to work with you because you've got the solution. You've got it in a hat. Everything's sorted. Yeah. So that's where understanding who your avatars are and really getting under the skin is important, because if you do that right, it means that every step of the customer path is going to be tailored to their specific needs, and they're much more likely to move along the path to the end.
So it's those three words you will hear me repeat often: market, message, media. Okay, you cannot send a message to a market that you don't understand. So your market, your avatar, the person that you want to have the conversation with, you have to know who they are before you can have the conversation.
Yeah.
And then when you have the conversation, you can have a value-driven conversation because you understand where they are in their journey and the pain that they're in or the problems that they face.
Yeah, I can't emphasize. It's something that I've kind of like got these sheets. I've got them on here. So I'm actually working for an accountant. Did some work for an accountant a couple of weeks ago, and he's basically an accountant that you say marketing to him, and he goes, "Huh? Well, what's that?" Seriously. So he just basically abdicated the whole responsibility to me. And me being marketer, oh yeah, I can do this. So I started doing everything, shortcutting the process. And I thought, no. So I actually spent an hour filling out these sheets on his behalf, and suddenly really got to the nub of what the problems that his customers were having. And that's now impacted every single piece of marketing literature and communication I've put out since. So I cannot emphasize how important it is to know who you're speaking to. Back in my career, when I was I spent 3 years in national accounts in sales. I worked for Hotpoint. I sold basically washing machines to B&Q. All right. There's one guy in B&Q who was the person who decided whether to buy my machines. He'd go to Bosch, go to Hoover, or whatever. All right. His motivation was not what was right for the customers. His motivation was, how do I have an easy life and get promoted? But he was my customer. So I needed to make his life as easy as possible. I needed to make him look good in front of his bosses. But because those were his motivations, I actually made a little bit more money for my business because of the fact that he wasn't purely, he had his target. As long as he hit his target in terms of revenue, projection, profits, he didn't care about the extra bit, because the extra bit would bring a load of hassle that he wasn't being paid for, right? But that's when I suddenly realised that the closer you get to your customer and the closer you understand them, not just who they are and why they're buying your product, but what does it mean? They're not buying kitchens. It's the same situation as home automation. Yeah, there will be people who want kitchens because they want it. I know I'm teaching you to suck eggs probably anyway, but there'll be people who want kitchens because they want a functional kitchen. They love cooking, which is completely different to someone who wants a kitchen to show it off to all their friends and have like an entertainment station, whatever. And the messages to those two of those people are completely different. They're both part of your target market, but they are completely different messages. And the challenge is understanding how you can get those messages out to people and resonate with those people so that they will then start taking a journey towards becoming a customer.
Okay, so I think we've hammered that home. I think people have got...
Yeah, I'll probably come back to it again because it really is important. I'm really passionate. So
once,
yeah.
What is moving from uninformed to informed, suspect, prospect?
Okay, so basically what I've done is that it's the idea of breaking down a customer journey into individual steps and understanding how you get people, instead of, you know, coming back to the marriage analogy and you know, kind of like the not asking. And this is all based on something I picked up from another marketer. Who's heard of Desmond Morris? Yes. Human behaviourist, yeah? He's done a lot of books, okay. Back in the 70s, I think it was when he was at his heyday. And one of the things he came up with was this idea of the 12 steps of intimacy in human relationships. All right, and then what he basically said was that people who are in a relation, people who are going from not being in a relationship to being in a relationship, there are 12 specific steps that they go through. All right, so the first one is eye to body. So you see someone in distance. Okay, then it's eye to eye. Then it may be hand to hand. Then it may be hand to the body. All right, then it may be body to body, as in a hug. Okay, so it all goes through and you can see the natural conclusion of it as it's where I won't go into graphic details. But what he found was that it was not about how quickly you went through each of those steps that dictated whether that relationship was going to succeed or not. What he found is that it was making sure that you hit each of those steps. If you jumped too many steps, so if you went, it's like I said, it's, you know, asking someone to marry you on the first date. If you went in for the kiss for the first time you'd ever seen them, they'd be like, ah, yeah, because you've jumped too many steps. You haven't earned that right. And what this whole customer path is about breaking that down from a business relationship point of view into individual steps and how you can take people from a stage of uninformed where they didn't even know you exist to being an advocate and they're actually out there selling your business. And every single person that you could be speaking to is somewhere along this continuum. Every single spot. So you start off with uninformed. Uninformed means they don't even know you exist. All right. So how do you get someone who doesn't know you exist to know you exist? All right.
A Facebook group would
exactly.
be a good
yeah. SEO is something someone types in. They want to look for home automation. They want to look for aloe vera products or whatever. Those are the types of things. So Facebook advertising, Google advertising, those types of things are the type of things that will get people onto your horizon. All right, and this is really important because understanding that there are the right tool for the right job. All right, all SEO does. So you all understand SEO? Yes. Search engine optimization. Basically, people typing in Google who you are and they find you. All that does is take someone from a I didn't know you existed to I know you exist. That's all it does. It gets them to move from the uninformed to the informed stage. All right. So if you look at your website and you've got loads of people who are actually arriving at your website, you don't need to worry about SEO. There's actually other problems that are probably higher on the priority list. All right. So then the next step is, and obviously networking falls in that as well. It's a great way of getting people aware of who you are and what you do. The next step is once you've got them informed, you want to move them to what I call the suspect. All right. So what this basically means is you want them to give you, let me rephrase that, they need to give the time of day. Is it you or them? I can never remember the phrase. They need to give you the time of day. They need to actually spend some time having a conversation with you. So again, from a networking point of view, it's not just, hey, I'm an accountant. Oh, I don't know accountant. Piss off. I'm not bored. Not interested in you. It's having a conversation and learning a little bit more about them. It's spending some time on a website and learning a little bit more. It's going into Facebook group and having a conversation with someone. So basically the idea is that people who are suspects, as it were, are people who are not just aware that you exist, but they actually know a little bit about you. They know what makes you different. All right? So, yeah.
From a Mailchimp point of view there, are those
No, they're not even on your email list yet.
Oh, okay.
Because you haven't got the detail. They're only just, this is what I say, literally, they've arrived on your website and they've read a couple of blog posts and they go, oh, I'm interested. This seems like type of business. Haven't done anything. The next step, moving from suspect to prospect, is the capture of an email address or the capture of some key piece of information, telephone number or whatever. So the idea being is that move, when they become a prospect, your conversation changes from you broadcasting to the world to you almost having a one-to-one conversation with them because they've given you their email address. And so one of the criteria that I've got with a lot of my clients is actually tracking how many people they've got email addresses for. And they translate that compared to suspect, which could be things like bounce rate on the website or how much time they spend on pages. So suddenly you're starting to get some numbers, and I know numbers is going to be your focus in March. You start getting an understanding of how you can start building a funnel from numbers. So 500 people have visited my website. 300 of them have spent time on my website and actually looked at more than one page. And 50 of them have filled in a form on my website to give me their email address. So you're starting to build a funnel which is narrowing up.
And when the customer moves through this path or journey, at each point, that is a conversion.
Yeah.
So you're converting interest into action at various stages. And the prospect stage, is they are actually voluntarily giving you information about themselves so that you can respond. Now, I'm guessing that you would suggest people use Mailchimp.
Well, yeah, exactly. So that's, but there's, you know, I'm not part of the Mailchimp mafia, as it were. It doesn't matter to me what you use, and it doesn't have to be at that point. It doesn't even have to be a sign up to an email list. It's just the signal that someone has taken that relationship from being them just listening to you to them actually engaging in a conversation. So this doesn't just apply online. You can ignore online completely if you want to, because it's just a level of, I mean, like I said, if you use the relationship analogy, none of that, well, maybe now it does a little bit more, but back in my youth, it was all done in reality and in person. It's probably the reason why I was single for a long time. Anyway, that's another story. We've already covered my confidence issues enough. But the idea is that prospect stage is a very significant stage because it's moving someone from someone who's just listening to what you've got to say to actually having a conversation. They're giving you something in return. Now, coming back to what I was saying about knowing what happens next and then making it more likely to happen, yeah? In that move from suspect to prospect stage, that's where a lead magnet is really, really useful. Because you can have a form on your website that says, give me your email address, I'll send you newsletters. And people are like, yeah, right, whatever. If you then say, give me your email address and I'll send you this really useful document of how you can do this thing that you're really interested in, people are much more likely to do it. So again, that whole concept of what you want them to do is you want them to put their email address in. How can you make it more likely they will put their email address in? You bribe them, to be blunt. And that's what a lead magnet used to be called, an ethical bribe. Yeah, they're now lead magnets, as it were. But that's what you do. You basically encourage them to take that next step. Even to the point, and this is where I'm sure Eloise would spend 2 hours on website, and you could do it as well. But you design the page, you make the form, the colours that you use on the button that they put there. Don't do a form with the word subscribe. No one likes to subscribe. Don't put a form that submit. Who likes submitting? It's got far too many negative connotations. Put on the button on the form, join our group or get your download or whatever. It's a really small thing. But if you start, just like they, kind of like the whole idea of the reason that British cycling has been so good at the Olympics is this whole idea of the accumulation of marginal gains. Small 1% in a whole variety of areas that when you bring them together really moves it forward. So changing the colour of the button that they sign up on a web page, it may only be really a small percentage, but if you do that and you change the words on the page and you put a lead magnet in there and you don't ask for their, kind of like their kid's inside leg measurement, you just ask for their email address, all of those things will make it easier for them to do it and more likely to fill the form out.
Make sure your buttons clash violently and offensively so that they leap off the page. It's a little bit like when you go to the shop and you want to buy something, you look around for the thing that says pay here or check out. You just got to make it
Totally.
jump off the page.
Yeah. So once you go on in.
The users come to your website. The form that I'm guessing
Yep.
has been generated
Yep.
through Mailchimp.
Yep.
Put on your website.
Yep.
They've clicked.
Put their email
grab
address in.
My download
Yep.
now.
Yep.
What happens next within a Mailchimp context?
Well, you think about it. It's again, what is to be blunt? What do you want to have next? And I sound like a stuck record, but it is what happens next. You've got their email address. Well, the first thing you want to do is obviously you want to deliver the lead magnet. What you then want to do is say, isn't this lead magnet great to some extent? And then and this is really important, if you are doing email marketing, and again, I'm not sitting here that's saying email marketing and building an email list is right for every business. You know, I'm a marketer, and a marketer means that everything's on the table. For some of you, it may be brilliant. For some of you, this may be completely redundant in terms of email marketing, but the process does apply to every single business. If you are looking at email marketing, which is the most important email that you ever send to someone? The first one. And that sounds stupid, it's the first one. The reason it's so important is the fact that it's their first impression of having a conversation with you. Remember, psychologically, they've moved from I'm just reading about this to I'm actually now having a dialogue. As a consequence, that first email and the first series of emails is so important. It's important because it allows you've been given permission to have a conversation with them. So you need to take advantage of that opportunity. You need to demonstrate why you are the perfect person to help them. What makes you different from out there? What you stand for. We were talking about this at the start. Knowing why are you doing what you're doing? That resonating with people is now more important than ever. Then people don't just want to buy something, they're buying into a cause, they're buying into something they believe in. And if you resonate with that message, so whether it's that you're focusing on, kind of like people be healthier, as it were, or have a nicer looking house, or whatever it is, that resonation, the more you resonate with them, the more likely you're buying into.
That's the authenticity.
Oh, exactly.
You've created an impression of yourself and your business for all the other means.
This is-
and then you clash because
Oh, no.
your style's so silly.
You need and this is the reason why having those worksheets at the start of who you are, of what your avatar is, of what their journey is, that suddenly comes into that email because you know what to say because you've done the work previously. Yeah, and it's not just that as well. There's also a technical reason. The first email that you send, if it's opened and if it's clicked, that sends a signal to people like Gmail and Yahoo who are providing these email services that people like your emails, which means that the next email that you send is not going to go into the promotional folder. It's more likely to go into the inbox. So by getting people to actually value and engage with those first few emails that you send, that's basically a way of hotwiring and making sure that your emails are more likely, can't guarantee it, but more likely to go into the inbox and not into the spam folder or the promotional folder.
So if you are using email marketing within your business,
Yep.
one of the mistakes that people make is they allow somebody to put in their email address and then they go through to a thank you page which then says, and you can download whatever it is you're doing, or here's your free offer. When what they should be doing is saying, thank you very much, please check your inbox for the link to download your promotional offer, because you do exactly the thing that Robin has just said. People go to their inbox, they open the email, tick, this isn't spam, they click on the link, tick, emails from this address with a link in it aren't suspects, and they then go back to your website, tick, Google, people are coming back to the website. So you're doing a lot of really good things there rather than making it easy for your customer. You're not making it easy for yourself.
And also, and this is really, really important, when should that first email be sent? Should it be sent a couple of days after they've put their email address in, or a week, or straight away? All right, which means that you need to automate it, because if you're like me, you're not sitting there waiting for the form in. When the form goes, you go, yes, I've got another subscriber. If you're doing that, then you're missing the point. The email marketing is very much about numbers, as it were. But what you want to do is you want to make sure that those first few emails they receive are automated. Mailchimp can do this. You can do this on the free level of Mailchimp as well. All right. But what you need to do is you need to spend a little bit of time on those first 2 or 3 or 4 emails, and actually, those are your, how shall I put it? Those are your arriving on a first date. They're the shoes that you're wearing. They're the clothes that you're wearing. There's the fact that you've actually had a wash and combed your hair. Not a problem I have, but they're the type of things that really create a positive impression. You go in, you don't, it's a while since I had one, but you don't go into a first date not having any clue what you're going to talk about. Usually you go in, nowadays you've probably gone onto Facebook and stalked the person you're seeing, as it were, but at least you know a little bit about them and you can actually have topics in conversation that you can do. So you do some preparing. That's what this first few emails is about.
In actual fact, you should be thinking in terms of, if we're moving people from the suspect to the prospect, and it's about engaging with you, record a short series of videos so that when you land on the thank you page, a little video plays that says, thank you so much for downloading my thing. You're going to find da-da-da-da-da-da, go to your inbox now, download it, and if you've got any questions or any problems, respond to me on that email address and I'll come back to you. Then when they go to the page and download it, thank you so much for downloading it, that's really great, means that you can now do this, this, this and this, and you're reinvesting that value that they've just put into you. And that suddenly they've had 2 face-to-faces with you within the space of 5 minutes that you've got no way of doing in any other way, in any other context.
Yeah.
So you can actually make them much more like you and go, wow, that's amazing. Especially if it was like Russell on site with, hands like that and say, look, I'm really sorry, I'm sure you're really busy, but check your inbox. The little internet elves have been busy and they've sent you through the thing. And if you need to get in touch with me, give me a call, and then suddenly they can see you in context. And people are afraid of showing. I come from a theatre background.
Really?
And there was a thing. Brett was a huge person in the theatre world who was always talking about showing the showing. So showing that it is a show.
Totally.
And
being authentic.
On the internet, you can show the showing really to your advantage by showing people that actually this is who I am and this is what I'm doing. I'm not just a guy hiding behind a website. I'm actually involved in this.
Totally.
I'm doing that. I'm having these conversations. And it's a really clear way of communicating to people in a very simple 30-second video. I am who I say I am. This is me, and this is me in context. So it's lots of ticks in boxes of the trust going up.
Yeah. And the reason being is that the next step in the reason you need to do all of this stuff is because the next step in the journey is actually probably one of the hardest steps that you're going to get someone to actually take. So to move from prospect, where you've got their email address, to be blunt, to player, and player is where they have made some level of commitment to you. Now, in a lot of internet marketing circles, they will talk about a financial commitment. They'll talk about something that's called a tripwire, the idea of a very low-level purchase, just a couple of quid, as it were, but that's moving from being someone who isn't a customer to someone who has paid money. That's a big step psychologically. Now, personally, because I don't just live in the digital world, I actually do live in the real world as well, there is the other side of it. It's not just about making a money commitment. It could be making a time commitment. It could be them turning around and saying, you saying, and again, you need to understand what it is. It could be that you want to offer people a 30-minute consultation, all right? 30 minutes, all right? So what you need to do is move from prospect to player. Anyone who's a player has requested a 30-minute chat with you, all right? So how do you actually get someone who you've only got their email address to actually have a 30-minute chat? Well, you sell the 30-minute chat. You sell why it's of value. You use the welcome series to build credibility. You use videos to make you seem real and authentic, that you're not this scary person who's in charge of a massive Facebook group. You're just a person who's kind of like wants to help people and be more real, as it were. Because if you can get people moved from the prospect to the player stage, that is a big step, because now suddenly that conversation has not only developed from being a one-to-one conversation, there's a level of intimacy there. Because they've given you half an hour of their time, there's been a value exchange there. And that value exchange, again, changes the level of the relationship. So almost if you want to draw the analogy of relationships, you could argue maybe that this is the goodnight kiss. All right? So at the end of the date, if you get a kiss, That's a big step, especially if it's a first date, but it's a good signal that things are moving in the right direction. If you get a peck on the cheek, maybe not so. But you're moving in the right direction. And that is, if you can get people to make that commitment of whatever it is, and like I said, it could be time, it could be whatever, it could be appointment, it could be they buy something that's really cheap from you, whatever it is, you've moved the relationship to a different level.
Okay. I'm aware that if we spend the
I'm
same
just about to.
amount
I'm
of
just
time
no.
doing
The
this,
rest of it is we start accelerating now.
Well, what I would like to concentrate on is maybe some questions from people regarding Mailchimp
Yep.
and how they use Mailchimp
Yep.
and marketing,
Yep.
mail marketing in
Yep.
their business.
Well, what I was going to do is if I just literally just summarise and speed through the rest. So basically, once you've got that level of intimacy that you get a player, the whole idea of confirming the lead is this is someone who's interested and wants to buy. All right. So that's where by having that conversation, that 30-minute conversation, you could be actually moving them towards actually they're really interested. And then from lead to customer, again, that's a fairly obvious transition. But remember, the whole idea here is that knowing what that transition is, you need to make it easy to happen. So you need to look at that and go, right, well, I've got all these people who are really interested. How am I making it easier to buy? Discount, spread payment terms, cheaper products, splitting products out. All of those are things you can do. But obviously, once they're a customer, that doesn't mean to say that you can't still generate value for them. So customer to VIP is to get them to buy more of your stuff. VIP to patron is get them so loving your stuff that they'll give you feedback and testimonials. And then patron to advocate is basically they're actually loving you so much that they're actively going out and selling your service just naturally. They're just so into it.
That's
all right?
building one of your pillars, your word of mouth pillar.
Exactly. So that's the reason why it then loops around, because those people are talking about it and naturally bring people from the informed stage. Then also you'll see on the left-hand side, you've got what I call zombies. All right. Zombies are people who've been in your process, but for whatever reason, they've not taken things to the next level. They've dropped out, they've stopped opening emails, they've not engaged. You can't ignore these people, because if you do, you're missing out on a huge opportunity. So you need to be able to identify what qualifies as a zombie and what you can do to bring them back into the overall process. All right, but hopefully you can see the whole idea of this customer path is that it takes that customer journey from zero to being a massive fan of yours. It breaks it down into individual steps, and it means instead of you going, oh, should I do Facebook Messenger, or should I do a Facebook group, or what do I need my website for, or should I blog, or whatever, it puts all of those conversations into the context of a system, and if you know where the holes in that system are, you can actually start filling them with the right type of marketing activity, as opposed to just going, I need to do this, without understanding why you're doing it.
And also, more importantly, you can put a number on each one of those
Totally.
for the amount of people that you're reaching with your marketing,
Yeah.
who is at each stage.
Yeah.
And if you can put a number on it, you can see where
How good you are.
bottlenecks
Yeah, how good or how bad you are.
And quite often people start rushing up to, right, I need to get more people to my website, or I need to speak to more people, or have more conversations. And it's like,
No, you just need to do a better job with the ones that you are having.
if you have 100 names on a list, that's 100%. If you put that list together quite focused on your target audience, you can have 100 conversations there, which are going to keep you busy for a number of months.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, different people have different requirements with their marketing, but unless you start putting some numbers at those conversion points, you won't know how effective your marketing actually is. And if you can't measure it, you can't improve it.
No, and this is the key thing, is that it allows it to kind of like be broken down. And yeah, the key thing is if you know, like I've had people who've come to me and says, I need more leads. All right. And I go, really? Do you need more leads? And they go, yeah. And we look at the numbers. It's like, no, they don't need more leads. They've got more than enough leads. They're just really crap at converting those leads into customers. All right, well, let's focus on that. You know, the whole idea is that if your process is broken, number one, fix it. Number two, make it better.
I always
Simple
think
as
about
that.
having a conversation with the people who have money the closest to your bank account, because I know it's a crude way of thinking about things, but if you can think about the mechanical process of your business as moving money from one bank account to another,
Yep.
some of that money is going to be really close to your bank account. that you're skipping over to drive more people at the top end when actually you need a better process of sales.
Yeah, essentially what you're saying there is, this is actually saying there's a load of people at leads, but they're not converting to customers, and you're there worrying about how you get more suspects and how you get more prospects, when in actual fact that's not where the problem is. So does this kind of like make sense to you? The whole idea is if you do kind of like follow this process, it does break down your marketing. And Mailchimp is can be an important part if it's right for your business. But hopefully you can now see that it's really understanding where people are in that journey, and if you're using email to go in.
What is your website, just so that people can get in touch with you if they've got
The best one the one that's updated as much as it can be is at chimpanswers.com. I've got cards, so you can actually grab my details and whatever. I'm quite happy to send the worksheets that I've also created as well. But like I said, the whole idea that this is why I'm really passionate about what I do. Mailchimp for me, and hopefully there's be lessons for you in terms of, again, we've not really touched on email marketing in Mailchimp. And the reason being is that a lot of the people I speak to, they come to me, go, can you solve this problem with Mailchimp? My email marketing isn't working. And what invariably happens, it's not the email marketing that isn't working, it's other aspects of their business that they need to make better. And once they've got those better, then they can start. It's not that I'm a religious person, but it's almost kind of like can someone take this eye out? One of the parables, someone goes to Jesus and say, take this speck out of my eye, and he turns around, well, take the log out of your eye first before you wear out the speck. And it's the same here. So it's if you do this will identify where the problems are, solve those problems, and then make it better. And email marketing is a core part of this process, because as soon as you've got their email at a prospect level, you can actually track them where they are, and if you know where they are on their journey, you'll know what to say to them to get them to take the next step, because email marketing is purely another form of communication. You can get into the technical bits of should have a form here and whatever, and I'm quite happy to hang around and answer any technical questions if you've got them. But fundamentally, it is a communication process. And if you understand who you're speaking to, you understand what their journey is, then you'll have a much better chance that the emails that you send are going to resonate with the right people and are going to make what happens next more likely to happen.
So rings true. When I did consultancy for social media, just when the rise was everyone was on the Twitter platform or whatever, and people would be really surprised that I wasn't sitting on there doing the technical things of Twitter, because we were working out the business.
Yeah.
And that also we were saying, fine, let's do all these things, assuming that your customers there in the first place. Can you cope with the influx of work that was going to come? And some of the businesses couldn't manage with the workload they had, never mind an amplifier.
Exactly. So, and this is the thing. It's you need to understand the bigger picture, as it were. But once you've got that, you'll drill down into the detail.
I think we've had quite a wide-ranging discussion around marketing, with some specifics in and around how to structure and fit Mailchimp into it.
Yep.
Robin said that he'll hang around for any questions you've got afterwards. I realise that time is ticking by, so what I'm going to do is bring the session to a close. But I'm more than happy to facilitate a Q&A with Robin if you want to hang about. If not, thank you for coming. And next week we will see the wonderful Eloise talking to us about how to add some wow factor.
Quite nicely on.
That's perfect,
wow
leading.
factor to your website. And we'll be dropping some more knowledge bombs to help you explode your marketing. So you did that.
Oh, I forgot to say. One of the things I mentioned previously, I've got my Facebook group and I've not made any money from it. On Friday of this week, I'm launching my first training course, which is basically a combination of this and how you incorporate Mailchimp and lead magnets and other bits and pieces there. It's the first one that I've done. It's going to be online over a 6-week period. This is not a sales pitch. Well, it is kind of, but it's not really, because it's the first one I've done. But if you feel this resonates and you feel this is an area, then that might be something that would actually give you a good structure and foundation that you can go from. And if you want details of it, just basically let me know and I'll drop you an email when I launch it. I was flogging my guts at 10:30 last night trying to finish the landing page. So,
Fabulous.
but
So
brilliant.
Round of applause for Robin. And we'll see you.
I'm not going anywhere. I'm here.